Just imagine being lured to this desolate moor and like the promise of adventure. You think you're going on an adventure, but it turns into this like unimaginable nightmare.
Yeah.
Sadly, that stark image that is the reality for the victims of, what we're talking about today, the Moors murders.
A case that, I mean, it shook Britain to its core. A story of,
Yeah.
seemingly ordinary lives colliding with this unimaginable darkness.
And you've given us quite the collection of articles and YouTube video transcripts to try to unravel. And I've got to say, I'm a little nervous to dive in.
Right.
But that's what we do here, right?
Absolutely.
We try to understand how Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, the infamous Moors murderers, how they became, this nightmare that haunted a nation.
Precisely. And while, we'll retrace the chilling details of their crimes, remember, we're going beyond just the what. We're going deeper.
Oh, yeah.
We're delving into the why. Who are these individuals before their paths intertwined on this path to becoming, really symbols of evil?
It's a fascinating question, and to be honest, kind of terrifying. So let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go back to Myra Hindley's younger years. There's one event in particular that seems to have left like a really deep mark on her. It's the drowning death of her young friend, Michael Higgins.
Yeah, and it's a tragic incident, obviously, but Hindley's reaction is particularly striking. She converts to Catholicism.
Wow.
The religion that Higgins followed. Some might see this as like a way of coping with, maybe some guilt.
Yeah.
Or perhaps even seeking solace in something, larger than herself after experiencing such a loss.
You're right. That's a fascinating psychological detail. And it's especially interesting, because when she meets Ian Brady, it's like she completely abandons her faith.
Yeah.
Like embraces this darker persona under his influence.
Yeah, her transformation is truly remarkable. Drastically changes her appearance, her beliefs. Even seemingly her entire moral compass. In fact, one source even mentions that Hindley once said that she would have believed Brady if he told her the earth was flat.
Oh my gosh.
That's a chilling testament to the depth of his hold over her.
Yeah, it's like he opened a door to a side of herself she didn't even know existed, And they kind of, together, they fall into this abyss of darkness. They become, like, obsessed with crime.
Yeah.
And they even find, like, a twisted reflection of themselves in the story of Leopold and Loeb, right?
Right.
Those two young men who become fixated on committing the perfect murder.
And it's that concept of the perfect murder that becomes, it's central to their own horrific acts.
Yeah.
And it raises the question, are we talking about folie à deux here?
Oh, wow.
Which is a rare psychiatric syndrome, by the way.
Okay.
Where a shared delusion, often of a persecutory or grandiose nature, manifests in two or more individuals.
So you're saying, like, their shared obsession with this, with wanting to execute these crimes flawlessly, that could have been a symptom of a shared psychological disturbance.
It's a compelling theory.
Yeah.
And as we, delve deeper into their crimes, it's worth considering how this shared delusion, if that's what it was, might have influenced their actions, their choices, and ultimately their descent into, unimaginable cruelty.
And descend they did. Their first victim, Pauline Reed, just 16 years old, she was tragically linked to Hindley, actually.
Right.
Can you imagine, like, the horror of, your sister's friend, this young girl connected to your family, becoming their first victim?
And it gets even more, chilling when you think about the fact that Pauline Reed had also been involved with David Smith.
Okay.
The man who would later play a pivotal role in bringing Brady and Hindley to justice. It's like their paths were almost intertwined even before this nightmare began.
Wow.
But, this wasn't just some random act of violence. Brady and Hindley meticulously planned their crimes.
So calculated. Their method was so calculated and cold.
It really was.
Brady would scout for victims on his motorcycle, right? Cruising through the streets like a predator, basically. And he would signal to Hindley when he spotted a target.
Yeah. Someone vulnerable. Someone they thought they could control.
Right.
And you know what? The sources even mention an instance where they actually passed on a potential victim because she was deemed too young.
What?
They were afraid she might draw too much attention.
Oh my gosh.
This detail, as disturbing as it is, it really highlights the chilling pragmatism that underpinned their horrific acts.
It's terrifying to think of them so casually dismissing a life because it didn't fit their twisted criteria. And sadly, their depravity, well, it wouldn't stop there. Their next target, John Kilbride. Just 12 years old.
Yeah.
He was last seen at a market, and they lured him away, right, with the promise of a ride. Like, can you imagine the terror he must have felt as he realized he wasn't being taken home?
It's a heart-wrenching thought. And the discovery later on of John's name, just scribbled in Brady's notebook, a chilling artifact that the police found later.
Oh, God.
Confirms that this was no chance encounter. You know, they sought him out.
Wow.
Another victim in their twisted game.
And then there's Keith Bennett, another 12-year-old boy who vanished, like, without a trace.
Yeah.
And the sources mentioned that, like, despite decades of searching, countless pleas from his mother, his remains have never been found.
Yeah. And, you know, Keith's case, it just adds another layer of tragedy to this whole story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To imagine the anguish of his family.
Yeah.
Forever left wondering, never able to lay their child to rest. It's a haunting reminder, really, of the lasting scars left by these crimes. You know, the pain echoing through generations.
The thought of his family, like, still searching after all this time, it's just heartbreaking. But sadly, the horror doesn't end there. Their next victim, Lesley Downey, was just 10 years old. And what makes her case, I think, even more disturbing is the existence of that audio recording.
You're right to bring that up. I mean, that recording, discovered by police during their investigation, captured, the harrowing reality of Lesley Ann's final moments.
Awful.
It provided, undeniable proof of their guilt, but also exposed the chilling brutality of their actions to the world.
And the sources mentioned that quotes from the transcript, like, were widely circulated in the media.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, painting this, like, terrifying picture of what happened in that room. I can't even begin to imagine how horrifying it must have been for the jury to hear those tapes, to be confronted with that kind of raw evil.
The impact of that evidence on the public was, it was profound. Hindley especially became a lightning rod for public fury, labeled, the most hated woman in Britain.
I remember that.
And the media frenzy surrounding the case, just amplified that hatred, turning them into these monstrous figures, almost like the embodiment of evil in human form.
Yeah, it's a grim reminder of how the media, while crucial in reporting on these events, can also contribute to this sort of mass hysteria. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shaping public perception and often kind of obscuring the complexities of the case.
Absolutely. And in all of this, in this media storm, their final victim, Edward Evans, almost becomes like a footnote in the public consciousness.
Right.
And unlike the others, Edward, who was 17, wasn't murdered on the desolate moors that lent their name to this whole horrific saga.
Right.
He was killed in their home.
That's a terrifying detail. Like, it suggests an escalation in their crimes.
It does.
This boldness that could have continued if they hadn't been stopped.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's almost Shakespearean the way they were finally caught.
No.
It was David Smith.
Right.
The same David Smith who once had a relationship with Hindley's sister.
Right.
And knew Pauline Reed.
Exactly.
Wait, are you saying that the man whose former girlfriend and friend became their victims was also the one who brought them down?
It's like something out of a movie.
That's insane.
Smith witnessed Edward Evans's murder. He saw the brutality firsthand. And despite his fear, he found the courage to report it to the police.
That's incredible bravery, especially considering, like, his connection to Hindley.
Oh, absolutely.
He could have easily looked the other way, but he chose to speak up.
And his testimony was, it was paramount in their trial. And what the police uncovered during their investigation, it sent shockwaves through the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Photographs, audio recordings,
yes.
Even the burial sites on Saddleworth Moor. It just painted a horrifying picture of their crimes.
Faced with that mountain of evidence, you would think they would confess, right?
Well, not quite. You see, while Brady seemed, maybe resigned to his fate,
yeah,
Hindley maintained her innocence.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And her denials, especially in the face of such damning evidence, just further fueled public outrage.
Yeah.
It painted her as, completely remorseless and manipulative.
Wow. But later she did confess, didn't she?
She did. Years later, though, in 1987, Hindley finally admitted her involvement in the murders and even attempted to appeal for her release, claiming she was a changed woman.
Wow. It's hard to imagine someone capable of such cruelty could ever truly change.
It's a complex issue,
Mm-hmm.
and it ignited a firestorm of debate, really, across the nation. Could someone who committed such unspeakable acts, could they ever truly be rehabilitated? Should she be granted parole? Or should she remain in prison for the rest of her life?
It's a tough one. And what about Brady? Did he ever express remorse for his actions? Did he ever, I don't know, try to offer any comfort to the families of his victims?
Sadly, no. Brady remained defiant, even in the face of death. He clung to his secrets, refusing to reveal the location of Keith Bennett's remains,
Oh, wow.
taking that information essentially to his grave in 2017.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like this final act of cruelty,
it is.
a way to maintain control even in death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brady's refusal to disclose the location, it ensures that the family's suffering just continues, denying them the closure that they so desperately crave.
Oh.
It's a chilling reminder, really, of the enduring power he holds, even in death.
It's heartbreaking. And even though Brady's gone, like, the search for answers for Keith, it continues. In fact, just last month, there was a potential breakthrough.
Right. You're talking about the author who believes he may have uncovered human remains on Saddleworth Moor.
Yes. And it's still under investigation, but the possibility, however slim, that it could be Keith,
Yeah,
it gives you chills.
it does. And it speaks to the profound, and lasting impact of this whole case. Imagine, the bittersweet emotions for Keith's family, the possibility of closure after all these years,
Right.
but also the potential of reopening those old wounds.
It's almost too much to bear, honestly, but it underscores what you were saying earlier about the ripple effect of these crimes. This isn't just about Brady and Hindley. It's about the families whose lives were shattered.
Yeah.
The communities forever marked by their actions, like generations touched by this tragedy.
You're absolutely right. And I think this case, with its enduring mysteries, the unanswered questions, it really serves as a stark reminder, of the devastating consequences of evil.
It really makes you wonder, right? Like, what could possibly drive two seemingly ordinary individuals to commit such monstrous acts? Was it this shared delusion, some darkness that festered within them, or something more complex, like a confluence of individual pathologies and this shared obsession with the macabre?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? That continues to fascinate. And I think, to horrify us. Were they born evil?
Mm-hmm.
Or did something happen, something along the way that twisted their humanity? And unfortunately, like so much about this case, that answer remains elusive.
It's true. And we're left to grapple with the darkness. The sheer incomprehensibility of it all. The Moors murders stand as this stark reminder, right, of the fragility of innocence.
Absolutely.
The enduring power of evil. And I think just this desperate need to understand the depths of human cruelty, even when it seems impossible.
It's a haunting, and I think a very sobering thought.
Yeah.
While we may never have all the answers, I think it's through these deep dives, these explorations into the darkest corners of human behavior that we honor the victims.
Yeah.
And we continue the pursuit of understanding, even if that understanding is forever out of reach.
Well said. Thank you for taking us on this incredibly heavy but so important journey.
Yeah.
And to you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Moors murders, a case that continues to captivate, to horrify, and to remind us that sometimes the pursuit of understanding is just as important as finding the answers themselves.